Hey everybody, it's Ansel and we are back. Today we'll be taking a look at two premium keycap sets, GMK and CRP, and comparing them to two more budget-ish keycap sets, Domikey and Xiami. But before we get into that, let's look at our sponsor, PCBWay. PCBWay is your one-stop shop for PCB manufacturing and keyboard prototyping. Their CNC machining service is incredible, and is trusted by companies such as Siemens, Medea, and even Philips. They have a wide array of materials to mill such as aluminum, brass, stainless steel, and more. Not only is their configurator easy to use, but it provides an incredible amount of options to ensure that your prototype comes out just the way you want it. Make sure to visit PCBWay today for high quality production for your keyboard and electronic needs. Now, back to the video. So for some quick background info, GMK, we all know that. Very good, high quality, ABS double shot keycaps with incredible colors and colorways, and it's considered the highest quality keycaps out there. CRP on the other hand is kind of in that same realm, but specifically for PBT. They don't have the most options for colorways, but the colorways they do come in are very versatile, very classic, and very beautiful. Domikey, on the other hand, has been doing their thing for a while, but recently they've come out with their Hush line of keycaps. These provide double to triple shot keycaps, and even though they don't have the most wide array of color choices, the color choices that they do have are actually really nice, and hopefully they'll expand more in the future. Finally, we have Xiami. You might actually know this as 21KB here in the States, but actually the true manufacturer is Xiami. They're ridiculously cheap, and they're actually really nice. I'll go more into detail about these later, but they're a bit difficult to get a handle of, and if you don't get them from a local vendor like 21KB, you have to go through Taobao, and it's a bit complicated for some people, and that might be enough to turn some people off, but honestly these are totally worth it. But let's get right into the comparisons instead for now. So to start off, let's take a look at the sharpness of the legends slash fonts. Right off the bat, GMK, literally perfect. No issues here. Easily GMK wins in this category. The legends are super sharp, really consistent, very thick and beautiful, and honestly there's nothing wrong with it at all. Only thing is they don't offer triple shotting like Domikey, meaning they can't do as versatile colorways without having to do pad printing, but most sets don't even do that anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. Now moving on to Domikey, the legends on here are actually really freaking good. Super sharp, super thick. I like that even though the font's different, it's still really nice, and the fact that it's triple shot means that we get incredibly sharp legends if they want to be a different color. However, they're not the most consistent. We have some issues here and there, especially on the number row and on the mods, but again, it is much cheaper than GMK when you think about it, and they're still ridiculously sharp, so solid like 8 out of 10 I must say. Now moving on to CRP, obviously we know that the legends aren't going to be as sharp compared to DMK or GMK, because it's double shot, it's not going to happen, but they're pretty sharp. Now unfortunately the edges are a little bit fuzzy, but for the most part they're actually pretty good. They're nice and thick, and the sub-legends actually are super sharp if we're being completely honest, so it's definitely passable and actually really good to begin with, but it's not much better than something like say ePBT. But the legends are pretty consistent, alignment is better than Domikey's for sure, and overall they're still pretty darn good. Finally, we have Xiami slash 21KB. These genuinely surprised me. These were ridiculously sharp, and even though they're not as consistent as something like CRP, they're sharper than CRP. They're not as thick, but they look really good. The mods are a bit iffy, but for the most part, I really like how these came out. They're stupidly clean. Now, moving on to thickness. For the most part, these are all fairly similar. I think maybe they're slightly different, but it's very negligible in my opinion, except for Xiami. These are some thick boys. It's ridiculous, and I'm genuinely curious about how this affects sound. I was afraid that they would get interference, and there's a possibility that there might be some interference with certain switches, but honestly, they don't seem to be a problem at the moment, and I don't think it's going to be an issue. However, I do think that the other keycaps are thick enough, so it's not necessarily a downside for the other keycaps, but a possible upside for Xiami in specific. Next, let's take a look at the straightness of the spacebars, which is very important. I think Domikey won out here, although it's pretty close. Xiami is a very close second, even with the 7U. GMK is in third, although I have seen GMK spacebars that look like bananas, but I've also had ridiculously straight GMK spacebars. Granted, out of all of these keycap manufacturers, they manufacture the most spacebars overall, so some of these are actually not as common as you would think. They're just kind of overblown. And in a distant last is CRP. The spacebars are actually not that great with CRP, at least for this round. They do come with ABS spacebars though, but the color matching isn't as good, but it is straight enough to be usable. However, I tend to replace my CRP spacebars with GMK spacebars, so that should tell you how much I don't really like them to begin with. And finally, let's talk kitting and pricing. GMK, sorry dog, you lost. Let's not even talk about it. But moving on, DMK, or Domikey, these were roughly $130 and they're ridiculously good value for the price. I really don't think there's a single keyboard that you can't cover with the amount of kitting Domikey offers for their all-in-one set, all for the price of what a GMK base set would go for, if we're being completely honest. Out of all the sets, this easily has the best kitting, but of course it is also the second most expensive. CRP has some pretty solid kitting. It's not amazing, but it's definitely worth your money, and CRP isn't expensive at Group Buy to begin with, but CRP is limited even more in availability than GMK, so let's be honest, it's going to be pretty hard to get your hands on if you didn't join the GB. Finally, we have Xiami. The kitting is ridiculously good for the price. For $30, you get some insane coverage. It's ridiculous. The amount of value that Xiami has is insane, and I don't think it's beaten by anyone, especially for the quality that they offer. For $30, you get all of this at this quality. Granted, there are some hoops that you have to jump through in order to get these keycaps, but honestly, these are worth literally 3 times the price that I got them for. Finally, let's listen to some sound tests and I'll give you my final thoughts on all of these keycaps as a whole. So what do I think? I think overall GMK still wins in the quality department overall, but Domikey comes very, very close and they provide a very premium experience for the price. They compete very, very well with GMK, have much better availability, and sound-wise, I think GMK still wins, but DMK or Domikey is very, very close. It's 80% to 89% of the way. And that's a lot when you consider how much they cost. Now in regards to CRP and Xiami, I just prefer CRP over Xiami by a mile. I know that Xiami is much better value, but CRP just has a much better sound profile, at least for me personally. You might not agree, but for some reason, even though the Xiami is thicker, I don't think they sound as good as CRP. Granted, I did use the ABS spacebar that came with the CRP set, but still, the CRP just sounded much better for me. The Xiami just sounded a little cheap. Yes, they still sound and feel very good, but CRP does beat it out. However, when you consider how much Xiami costs at $30 to $40 per set, you can't really beat that. It's kind of ridiculous. It doesn't matter if I prefer the others. This is ridiculously cheap, and I think if you can go through the necessary channels to get this set, do it. It is so worth it, even for 3 times the price. But yeah, that's all for the video, guys. I promise I'm not a GMK shill. I just really, really like GMK. It's just me. You don't have to like it like I do, but yeah, that's all for the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great day. Peace.